The Houston Texans clamped C.J. Gardner Johnson. We'll tell you why they did it and talk about what's next for both the Texans and C.J. Gardner Johnson. Also, good God, last night's Astros game was a bummer. Are they donezo? And we're starting to get FOMO when it comes to playoff baseball, aren't we? Plus, Micah Parsons' return to Dallas, the buildup to it could not be more underwhelming. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast. Hit it. Get it on.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people wonder.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
Are you kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Wednesday, September 24th, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Like this video and subscribe if you could. On Twitch at Gallant Says, X and Twitter at Gallant Says Pod. On Instagram at Sports Gallant and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. Spread the word so that they know that I'm not dead. You can join the show Monday through Friday at noon Central Time and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, etc., etc., etc. If you're watching on YouTube, which I think is the best way to watch this show, cut me off with a little super chatterooski. Pay me, baby, and I'll play this.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
But I will eventually get to your comments, which you can leave the old-fashioned way by email, gallantsays@gmail.com, or you can give me a phone call and leave a voicemail at 281-836-3912, 281-836-3912. The C.J. Gardner Johnson era of Houston Texans football is officially over after 3 games. His legacy, 15 tackles, no interceptions, no breakups, and an argument to be made that he lost the Texans all 3 of their games. That's neat, isn't it? Anyway, hey, let's take a look at what the Texans actually did using a reference from one of my favorite movies.
Well, bye.
They gave C.J. Gardner Johnson the old tombstone. He gone. 2 write-ups were written about the Texans moving on from Gardner Johnson. First, we've got this article from DJ Bieneme, my guy,
from
ESPN.com. I don't know why that just started playing in the background. C.J. Gardner Johnson released by the Houston Texans. In this article, DJ highlighted a bunch of different things. This is one of the reasons that the Texans moved on from C.J. Gardner Johnson. He's struggled to pick up the scheme, which has contributed to big plays allowed. And we've been hearing some chatter about this over the last couple of days from the Texans and specifically from D'Amico Ryans. And after Sunday's game and on Monday at the press conference after the Texans lost to the Jaguars, D'Amico had this to say about some communication issues in the Texans' secondary.
That can lead to a bigger play in the secondary. How do you just feel overall about the communication that's been going on in the secondary?
Yeah, when you see a big play that happens on our defense, somewhere along the lines, there's a bust in communication. It all starts with communication, and granted, it hasn't been as crisp as it needs to be. So we have to play better on the defensive side. We got to communicate better, and we got to execute the defense better. And so, yep, it's not been great. We see that. We have to make some adjustments there to make sure we get it corrected.
Make some adjustments, man. Clamped getting rid of C.J. Gardner Johnson. Is C.J. Gardner Johnson the only guy who's having communications in the Texans secondary? Time will tell, but I imagine that DJ's not asking that question, that Texans reporters aren't asking about this before the move even happened on Monday, if there wasn't some idea that he was a big part of the problem the first couple of weeks of the season. More conversations about a lack of discipline defensively. This was C.J. Gardner Johnson's, this was D'Amico Ryans talking about the Texans and something that they did a very poor job of in their game against the Los Angeles Rams. Eye discipline, a big problem in that game. Here is D'Amico after that game.
A great eye discipline. So they made plays when our eyes were not in the right spot. We're looking in the backfield. They're throwing the football. Guess what? Guy's going to be wide open. So that's things that we control, and that's the main thing about this game. Rams did a good job, but there are a lot of things that we control, penalties, eye discipline, just the urgency. We control all of that.
But the eye discipline has not gotten better. And again, that's why C.J. Gardner Johnson got clapped. More from DJ Biename's piece at ESPN.com. Gardner Johnson has struggled to consistently guard the correct opposing player when required to match coverage based on defensive calls and routes run. This is something that also allegedly happened in walkthroughs. One play each week, apparently, a touchdown pass for the Rams, Matt Stafford to Davis Allen, a touchdown pass for the Bucks, Baker Mayfield to Ryan Miller, and that big Jaguars catch and run that set the Jaguars up for the touchdown where the Texans let them walk in. 3 plays, 3 touchdowns. Literally the difference, if you want to look at this glass half full, for the Texans being 0-3 and 3-0. Maybe he makes one of those plays 1-2, you're feeling a little bit better. 2-1, he makes 2 of those plays, you're feeling even better. Based off of the write-up that is coming out of NRG Stadium from DJ right there, it seems that everyone in the Texans building wants you to believe that C.J. Gardner Johnson was the problem for it, and he is the easy first consequence for this 0-3 start. DJ got this information quickly. He is connected with the Texans locker room. I think he has a really good relationship with players. I would joke with him. Sometimes I feel like it's a little too cozy, but on top of that, I think that the people that are in the PR side of things for the Texans are going to make sure that he is getting the most team-friendly messaging possible about why things went down the way that they did. But credit to DJ, who put that article out and also did a film analysis of C.J. Gardner Johnson's lapses in coverage, which we will get to a little bit later. So that's the first write-up that we saw. The other write-up we saw courtesy of Aaron Wilson from Channel 2. Sources: Texans release C.J. Gardner Johnson after friction behind the scenes, trade request, and criticism of teammates. So, some of the issues that led to Gardner Johnson's release per Wilson are criticism of teammates in the secondary, including one player's contract. Not hard to guess who he's talking about there. If you take a look at Over the Cap, follow Texans Cap. He does a really good job covering the salary cap side of things for the Texans. There's one contract in the Texans secondary that certainly jumps out, and it's not Derek Stingley, who actually has played very, very well. It's the contract that Jalen Petrie signed with the team. I mean, he's making a lot of money over the next couple of years. where the first year of a 3-year, nearly $30 million contract officially kicks in. I mean, technically the contract is 3 years for $39 million, if you really want to look at it that way. I don't blame CJ Gardner Johnson looking at that contract and thinking it's crazy. I thought it was crazy when the Texans gave him that extension. I think Petrie is good at some things, but it's limited. I think he's really good in the box when it comes to run support, tackling people, and being in the right place at the right time. But when it comes to coverage, he's certainly had his issues. So CJ Gardner Johnson was complaining and criticizing his teammates' play and one player's contract. I think it's very obvious that it was Jalen Petrie's deal. And just take a look for yourself here. If you're looking at overthecap.com, this is why you got to watch on YouTube, watch on Twitch. So he also complained about his role and a lack of blitzing over the course of the year. So I guess he wanted to be a little bit more like Jamal Adams was when I was covering him with the Seattle Seahawks. Blitz boy. And who's the guy that's in the way of him doing that role? Oh, it's once again Jalen Petrie. Apparently at some point, CJ Gardner Johnson made a trade request. He was constantly comparing his experience with the Texans to his time in Philadelphia. By the way, I don't blame him for that either. You come from a Super Bowl winning team to a team that's never gotten past the second round of the playoffs in their entire history, that underachieved last year, thinking that you're the finishing touch. I can understand how you would say this is how we do things. The idea that you push back against that is fucking stupid. And I know some people in the building might feel that way, but that's what it is. Like, hey, maybe he got annoying after a certain point and you contemplate, hey, okay, he's talking about how things were in Philadelphia, but he's not doing the job that we're asking him to do. Okay, that gets a little bit annoying, but at the same time, he was in Philadelphia. Maybe he took a little bit too much credit for his time in Philadelphia, but I don't blame him for bringing up how things were in Philadelphia if he felt that there were things that were perhaps wrong here in Houston. And while I understand why they moved on from CJ Gardner Johnson, I am not going to allow it to be so neat for the Texans to move on from him as if they're not at fault for their 0-3 start. This is one of those things you do and you're like, yeah, it's going to be better from here on out, at least based off of the way that these articles about Gardner Johnson's release have been written. One last thing in Aaron Wilson's piece about CJ Gardner Johnson, he has a recurring tendency to allow game-changing plays. So that's it. That's the end of the CJ Gardner Johnson era for your Houston Texans. And it begs this question. I think a very important one. What's the best goodbye song? Do you want me to sing them all? I could. How about Good Riddance by Green Day? Another turning point for the 0-3 Texans. They just got rid of CJ Gardner Johnson because he was the cause of all their sins. And now he's sitting in a bin. I don't know what this means going forward. It's something that was predictable because CJ Gardner Johnson's kind of an a-hole. And now he's going to have time away from the Texans. Huh? No? Greg Todd suggests on the Twitch, Boys to Men. Now that we've come to the end of the road, CJ Gardner Johnson couldn't shut up. Now he's gone. Woo! Could be that. We could do the Fast and Furious goodbye song. I don't know the name of this song, but I know it goes like this. Boom, 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 it's been a long 3 games, my friend, and we won't see CJ Gardner Johnson at the end. We've come nowhere since where we began. And we threw C.J. Gardner Johnson under the bus for the start. Could do that. I could do a little Elton John. Goodbye, C.J. Gardner Johnson. You know I knew you pretty well. Everyone thought you were an a-hole when the Texans traded for you. And now you're gone. And the press is hounding you 'cause you're sitting there out there. You're the reason the Texans look like poo. And it seems to me you lived your life like a guy who wouldn't shut up. Never knowing when to zip it after countless fuck-ups. And the Texans would have liked to know you, but then they got to know you a little too well. Your candle burned out, even though the Texans are still in hell. There you go, some songs. What's the best goodbye song, everybody? Let's read some comments quickly on the Gallant Says podcast live. On YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports, X at Gallant Says, at Gallant Says Pod, and on Instagram at Sports Gallant. Sneakers Most Wanted says, oh snap, maybe this might spark a run to the playoffs. Nick Caserio, you're a genius, bro. Still the King says, maybe C.J. Gardner Johnson had the Texans on an under 10 games wager like me. Sneakers Most Wanted continues saying, who knew C.J. Gardner Johnson was the reason for this 0-3 start? Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans are cooking. Next up is Woody Marks. You make us look dumb not playing you more, so your time as a Texan is up. Well, if they cut him, he can play somewhere else. J Adams 93 says Petrie's tackling is not that good. He misses a lot of blitzes, but he hits people hard. Ian Lindblom says crazy contract, but any player whining about a teammate's money is so detrimental to the team. Yeah, if you're doing it aloud to teammates, it is definitely going to alienate you. Still, the King believes the Texans are the most dysfunctional team now. I don't know. I think it's the Titans. We'll talk more about the Titans starting tomorrow. Ian Lindblom asks if the Eagles might sign him for pennies. I'm sure he called them already. Ian says that the Dolphins are most dysfunctional. No, it's the Titans, guys. Titans are way worse. Titans are way, way worse right now. Jay Adams says C.J. Gardner Johnson was very average and talked way too much. Well, with the Eagles, for what it's worth, he had 6 interceptions on a Super Bowl winning team. I would have a little bit of ego there, too. Twin A says CJ and Petrie are both trash. They threw CJ under the bus because he was arrogant and a new player. CJ probably felt like he wanted things to go his way because he came from a Super Bowl team. Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you. Sean Martinez says, it is football time in Texas. Yeah. You got the Cougs. The Aggies are doing well. Texas is not living up to the hype, but they only have 1 loss, and it was to Ohio State. So you got that going at least. But Arch has been very underwhelming. Let's keep rolling through here. It is the Gallant Says podcast. Who's next for the Houston Texans? Who's the next guy that gets taken out back and clapped? Is it Nick Caselli? Nick Caselli, that's just combining 2 Houston Texans names. It's Nick Caley or Nick Caserio, right? I saw this graphic highlighting some of the struggles for the Texans offensively from Football Insights. Offensive, what is it? Offensive red zone trips and trip touchdown rates. This is actually wild. You can't see the Texans if you're watching along because they're at the bottom. The Texans have been to the red zone fewer than any team in the NFL, 4, and they have not scored in the red zone. They are 0 for 4. That is mind-bogglingly brutal. I don't even know if that's a word. That's how boggled my mind is. 0 for 4 by far the fewest. If you see the bottom of the graphic, I mean, even the Dolphins have been 50 to the red zone 50% more times. 50% more times, just 2. That's it. Just 2. Woof. So, Nick Caley, offensive coordinator, is probably the next one up. I know some people want Nick Caserio gone, and you talk about how somehow, some way, both the Texans and Eagles lost the Kenyon Green trade. Yep, that is certainly true. You've seen some of the weird contract decisions that he's made. They trade for Shaq Mason from the Patriots. Shaq Mason isn't the Shaq Mason of old. And they get rid of him this offseason. They gave him an extension immediately after making that trade. That made no sense to me. The Jalen Petrie contract extension, trading a second-round pick for Stephon Diggs, and then making the rest of the contracts he had already on the books void. So you basically trade him for a one-year rental. I heard Landry and Cody talking about how last year D'Amico and other Texans noticed that after Diggs got hurt, he basically never came back to the sideline or the Texans locker room. He was pretty much out after he tore his ACL. I get it to a degree. I mean, hey, you're working on recovery, and I mean, what can you do to help this team when you're on the last year of your contract? They're probably not going to extend you, but I think they were all a little bit frustrated that Diggs separated himself from the operation after that went down. And then C.J. Gardner Johnson's restructure that they did means that the Texans have a good amount of dead money on the cap for a guy that played all of, 3 games for him? So, yeah, man. Caley's up next. Caserio, with 4 years and $20 million left on his contract, is probably an off-season decision. Though, I think it's worth remembering that the Texans have moved on from multiple coaches with years remaining on their contract pretty damn quickly. Bill O'Brien still had some time left on that contract. I don't think he was a lame duck. David Culley, Lovie Smith. The idea that they would not move on from Nick Caley because there's a 4-year, $20 million contract left, I'm not sure I buy that, because I think that this team has shown that they are willing to spend money to make problems go away. And hey, credit to them as an organization for deciding, you know what, fuck this. We're not paying for it anymore. It's a sunk cost. Let's just pay to get this guy out of the building and move on to the next. So I guess they are in a way paying for it. I don't know how they, make their budget work, but the Texans actually do have money. It's one of the few things that they consistently can point to. What else do we have going on for the Houston Texans going forward with C.J. Gardner Johnson out of the picture? I'll read a couple more comments here. YouTube, at Paul Gallant, Twitch, at Gallant says, Texans offense, says Jay Adams 93, looks like a woman playing Madden. LOL. Well, hey, I'm sure there's some women that are good at Madden. That's sexist. Come on. Another person comments, James Clancy, they're a high school team trying to play in the NFL. Twin A comments, people might not remember this, but C.J. Gardner Johnson was trash with the Saints. He was known for getting beat in New Orleans. Maybe the Texans got fooled because he got a ring. He was also with the Lions. He had his issues there. He was with the Eagles multiple times. he was often in the right place at the right time on a defense that did have a lot of talent, but the Eagles clearly were going to move on from him this offseason. The Texans said, fuck it, let's trade for him. He's got a mentality that we want. He, at the very least, is productive and opportunistic. So they rolled the dice, but to be out at this quickly does make you wonder about the Texans' ability to manage strong personalities. For all those people who are always saying, why don't the Texans get guys who aren't choir boys? This certainly has to make you wonder about the idea of doing anything other than choir boys. Ian Lindblom says the Texans offense looks like Joe Biden giving a speech. Oh, boy. Hey, and let me tell you, we're going to get the first down. If Woody Marks on the field, who's Woody Marks? I don't know who he is. Maybe we'll give it to Joe Mixon. Huh. Hey, wait, we're 3 weeks into the season? I was asleep. I had a lot of ice cream last night. More comments here. Sean Martinez says, I'm losing confidence in D'Amico Ryans. I understand he's a player's coach, but where's the accountability? I mean, this is accountability. They got rid of a guy. They fired him. Jay Adams 93 says, this team is terrible, like Walmart's potato salad. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new. Who knew? Now you do. I am definitely willing to do advertisements for Walmart again. What other comments do we have? Texans like to hand out free money, says Coffee and Whiskey on YouTube. They can't pay me to go watch their BS broadcast at NRG. Twin A says, I'd hate to have Nick Caserio as a business partner. He makes a lot of bad investments with bad contracts. His bad investments reminds me of the Billionaire Boys Club. We waste money on trash players. That's true. Very, very true. Jay Adams says that C.J. Gardner Johnson's a better talker than a player. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you there. Big Ball Squats 2021 says the Texans are more disabled than Stephen Hawking. Well, at least Stephen Hawking is smart. Can't say the Texans are a smart team. Anyway, let's keep on rolling through. Here are some nagging thoughts that I have after the Texans moved on from C.J. Gardner Johnson. I will always feel this way when a team moves on from a specific player. I hate how quickly the knives come out from a local beat when a guy gets got. Ring, 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 ring. Because, I mean, the beat got all the information on C.J. Gardner Johnson really quickly. We're talking some pretty specific details, and I'm sure multiple players heard this shit, but we're talking about refusing to take responsibility for guarding the correct opposing player when required to match coverage, which happened in games and in walkthroughs, that he struggled to pick up the scheme, the specific big plays allowed, complaints about his role, criticism of one teammate's contract and other teammates in the secondary. All of those things were real quick to come out. Comparisons to what he was accustomed to with the Eagles, those players should at the very least have listened to those, how things were with the Eagles, with an open ear, even if it did get annoying at one point. All of this information so quickly out. And seeing how certain people discussed it after the fact has me wondering, okay, was this something that was in the works for multiple days? I'm just going to show a couple of posts right now. First, this from Big Sarge Sports. I knew it was coming. The tension had been building for the last couple of weeks with complaining about the scheme and teammates. He knew it was coming. Was it because of those complaints? Was there something that he was hearing from coaches or somebody else in the building? DJ said something similar while on the Texans cookout with John Alexander from the Chronicle, Sarge, and with Chancellor Johnson. DJ said, I was hearing whispers early. There were issues of coverage busts and lack of accountability. I didn't anticipate he'd be gone by the third game, but it seems like there was conversation about his fit weeks ago. Okay. So, all these knives out so quick, was it because the seed had already been planted? Or once CJ Gardner Johnson's gone, they asked the sources they have, and the sources basically had like a notes app ready to go, copy and paste. Here's all the dirt. Or maybe D'Amico Ryans, Nick Caserio had a list of reasons ready to go for moving on from him. Reasons that they probably passed up the chain of command to Cal and Hannah. This is a little tinfoil hatty, I will admit, but man, the knives came out so damn quick with so many specific details. Another nagging thought with CJ Gardner Johnson no longer a part of the Houston Texans. It is now possible to spin the 0-3 start as the fault of one player. I saw this from Texans commenter who at some point I think we might do something together, even though we had a little beef last year. It was squashed. He asked this, very weird to ask this, but what's the Texans' record if they don't trade for CJ Gardner Johnson? Per DJ Bien-Aimé, at minimum, according to team sources, Gardner Johnson has allowed 3 big plays in those games that have contributed to the opposing offense scoring touchdowns. A specific one right here. This is the game against the Rams. Where is CJ Gardner Johnson? I'm assuming over here or there. Not 100% sure. Let's take a look one more time. CJ Gardner Johnson is, I guess, supposed to have done something differently on that play. He didn't do it. So, touchdown. The other one that was brought up, this is for the Texans and Bucks game. Ryan Miller wide open there. I remember seeing that play when it happened and wondering, hey, was CJ Gardner Johnson supposed to drop back? This one right here. Because Kalen Bullock's all the way over to the left side of the field. Like, that's a tough play to make. When one guy's running to his right, that's a tough play to make. And Gardner Johnson's here sitting by a guy who's pretty well covered. Ball goes right over his head where he's supposed to be. And then you have this play. This is the one time Brian Thomas didn't shit his pants, Texans-Jaguars, where ball goes over the middle, off to the races. Where the fuck was CJ Gardner Johnson? So these are the plays that were ready to go. And if those 3 plays don't happen, who knows what happens at the end of any of those games, because the Rams and Bucks were in scoring position, but touchdowns were scored, game becomes a little bit different there. And I don't like that it's now possible to spin the 0-3 start as something that could be different if the Texans never traded for CJ Gardner Johnson. Another nagging thought with CJ Gardner Johnson gone. Is it possible that CJ was right about anything, his observations during his time with the Texans? I ask that because this whole situation reminds me a lot about when the Texans signed Ed Reed. The Ravens had won the Super Bowl the previous year. The Ravens brought in Ed Reed thinking that he was going to be a leader. Texans started off the year 2-0, but there's some real question marks. Then they lost every game going forward after that. After one of those games, Ed Reed, who I guess wasn't playing as much as he thought he would play, said that the Texans were outplayed and outcoached after a loss to the Cardinals. He said they were outplayed and outcoached. Wade Phillips was the team's interim head coach at that moment in time because Gary Kubiak had collapsed on the field the week before. J.J. Watt didn't say anything when told about Reed's remarks. Reed then posted, "Speak the truth no matter what, in hope that it helps someone along the way. Reed wasn't playing much at the time. He signed a 3-year, $15 million contract, but missed the first 2 games with a bum hip. He started the next 5 games, but lost his job to Shiloh Ko the week before with Wade Phillips then in as interim head coach after Gary Kubiak had the stroke. So that moment in time, I remember thinking to myself, he's got a point probably, but there was a lot of pushback locally. Maybe it was support for Gary Kubiak or support for Wade Phillips for the coaching staff on a team that was losing. And yeah, Ed Reed was new to the situation, but Ed Reed played for a real team the year before, the Ravens. Texans were frauds. They were exposed in 2012 down the stretch. 2013, obviously, what happened was a disaster. 2011, they were much better. 2011 is probably the best Texans team ever. They almost beat the Ravens on the road in the playoffs despite TJH nearly throwing 5 interceptions. So I remember thinking, as I said just a moment ago, that Ed Reed was probably right about some things that were happening behind closed doors. He said that he felt lied to a couple of years after the fact about what his role was. He was recruited with a pitch to be a respected veteran voice. When he tried to set that example, he believes he was met with blowback from the staff. I will also say, though, that, hey, Ed had his hip cleaned up 2 months after signing. Maybe he should have told the Texans about that. So he ends up getting released after making those comments about being outplayed and outcoached. So crazy. This feels like it was just yesterday. The Texans released Ed Reed and placed running back Arian Foster on season-ending injured reserve. Reed, after the loss to the Cardinals, said the Texans were outplayed and outcoached in certain situations. Quote, eventually they're going to figure out what you're doing if you're doing the same old things. He continued saying he's not playing the way that he used to. I'm held to a higher standard because of what I've done in the past, but that was the past. I'm a totally different player now. Even when I did go out there, the ball didn't come my way. Wade Phillips said of Reed's criticism, everyone has an opinion. I'll keep mine in-house. Okay, you can keep it in-house, especially when things are, falling apart in the midst of a massive losing streak. But the issue I always had with the Wade Phillips defense with the Texans was it was the same fucking thing every play. It was 5 guys rushing, 5 guys in man coverage, 1 guy single high. Like, it always was that. Tom Brady would pick it apart. It was a big frustration of mine, and I love Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips is, I think, a very funny guy and also a nice guy. But that was an issue I had with that team. It did get a little bit stale. It got a little predictable. Credit to Wade Phillips. He goes to the Broncos. Broncos defense wins a Super Bowl. Not Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was along for the ride on that one. But I remember after all this went down thinking that Ed Reed was right. And I think that he makes some more interesting points here in a virtual Radio Row interview that he did a couple of years ago. This was, I think this was in 2020. Let me scroll to this.
It's different. The grass ain't always greener, but, like I said, I wouldn't change those experiences for nothing. I learned a lot. It was part of the business. I wasn't afraid or
Baltimore, I'm sorry, Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. It was different. The grass ain't always greener, but like I said, I wouldn't change those experiences for nothing. I learned a lot. It was part of the business. I wasn't afraid or I felt bad about me being released. I got picked up an hour after, so, and when it led that team in interceptions. So you got to ask yourself, was I washed up or, what was it there? For me to leave Houston, go to New York, lead New York in interceptions, what was it in Houston?
Yeah.
So they just had a lot of other things going on, and that they just couldn't get out of their own way. I talked to the GM and the head coach for 4 hours after they released me, because they still wanted to know what I saw, so that was definitely an experience.
Apparently the sound has been off for a little bit of time. Fun. Awesome. Where's Mapes when you need him? Great point. Great point, everybody. How long has this been going? Must have been when I hucked a loogie. Jesus fucking Christ. This has been a great fucking show today. 5 minutes. Motherfucker. God damn it. Anyway. What was I talking about before? Since the Reed clip? Okay. So, you heard the Ed Reed clip there. And the big question that I have is that, is it possible that Ed Reed was right about a lot of what he brought up with the Texans? I don't know if I buy what Reed had said about the 5-minute conversation that he had with the coaching staff and the general manager after the fact. I don't know if I buy that. God, I'm so mad at myself right now for muting the microphone and talking for as long as I did. I don't know if I buy that. But hey, I mean, I'm more willing to believe Ed Reed than I was willing to believe the Wade Phillips, Gary Kubiak, Rick Smith regime. And is it possible that C.J. Gardner Johnson, who's clearly not as intelligent of a player, brilliant of a player as Ed Reed was, is it possible that he had some fair points that he brought up? I think it is. I think it is. Some other nagging thoughts after C.J. Gardner Johnson's release by the Houston Texans. Lost in all this, it has not been a great season for Kalen Bullock, who everyone was really hyped up about after what they did in their rookie seasons. Also, I think that you take a look at the Texans and how they've handled yappers and non-Boy Scouts, and you certainly have some questions about them. At the very least, right now, Stephon Diggs, they bring him in, they trade a second-round pick for him, and God, I'm so fucking mad at myself right now. I can't help it. I'm so goddamn mad at myself. I can't believe that I just fucking left it on mute for all of that time. Fucking goddamn it. Nagging thoughts. The Eagles are now furiously jacking themselves off after what they did. I've seen a bunch of people on the Eagles beat acting like Texans couldn't handle what the Eagles did. Yeah. Cool. So let's get to C.J. Gardner Johnson's greatest hits. Let's get to his greatest hits, huh? How about his intro press conference where a lot of people thought that he acted like a bit of an asshole? Here he is, courtesy of KHOU Plus and Jason Bristol at his intro PC. Some of the highlights.
CJ. Nah, I don't allow that. First of all, people don't call me CJ. Nah, I don't allow that. It's either CD or 8. Which Mets you got to get that up. I'm sorry, Mets. I'm sorry. I love you to death, bro, but God, I think this was a great move for me. I think it allowed me not to get too comfortable. People understand, like, I was comfortable where I was at. It was easy. When I say easy, it was I had resources I could easily access, people I could just go talk to. I think moving here, being an older guy, I actually have to grow up. That's a funny statement, but growing up and teaching guys, like, it's more than just football. Being traded multiple times, I think people overshadow it by the things I've done in the league, but in reality, I just love playing football. I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't love football. I think I would still be in the league if I didn't love football or play with the passion I got. So I think the emotional state for me right now is cool. Championship or nothing. You ain't bring me here to win no division or no conference. So if I'm here to help win the Super Bowl, that's gonna be the the reason. But I think people know. A lot of people look at this team as like, oh, they got a lot of great pieces, but me to you, I think it's more than just a lot of great pieces. You have a great culture here, great organization. I think the more you fill this up with winners, not just me. Coach D'Amico was a winner. Runner Darby was a winner. Will was a winner. So you just fill the room up with winners. I think you're going to get what you want. And I think
the only thing stupider than me having the mute button on for 5 fucking minutes on this goddamn show is that stupid fucking hat he was wearing. I don't know what that was. Why is everyone trying to be Cam Newton? Get your own style. What the fuck was that? Hey, I'm going to wear this stupid-ass hat. And now in retrospect, everything with this guy's cringe. No. More from CJ Gardner Johnson. CJ Gardner Johnson's greatest hits on the Gallant Says podcast, everybody. Let's go to this clip where at one point CJ Gardner Johnson was asked, hey, what is it, buddy, that you bring to the table? A question that was asked, hey, man, why aren't you back with the Philadelphia Eagles by Ryan Clark? No apologies from Ryan Clark in this clip.
Full caliber, all pro caliber play. Why aren't you, after winning a championship, 2 times in Philadelphia, bro, 6 picks each of those years, why are you now a Houston Texan and not a Philadelphia Eagle?
scared of a competitor.
You said they're scared of a competitor?
Yeah, simple as that.
What you mean?
You can't program a dog. Certain dogs, you can't say be a dog and then it's time to go out there. Hey, we need you. Let's look at the Washington Commanders game. I got kicked out. I was nowhere near to play. Nowhere near to play. Everybody was fed up with me, and I'm like, if you go back to that play, I celebrated with Reed Blankenship. And I'm getting cursed from head to toe on the sideline and looked at Vic even get on me. I'm like, what did I do? So, people in the box, they call down and they're trying to figure out why am I getting kicked. They was trying to reverse the call because guys come off the sideline. If you watch that game, the game was already heavily. That's what sparked it. Then we had like a little scrum at practice. Nothing. It's just offense versus defense. But who's the culprit of it? Me, I guess, because I guess we're competing. When you telling the period is live. You telling us not to compete during a live period, but it's a live period. We competing to get ready for a playoff game. All right, cool. Mm-hmm.
Everyone's nodding along. And can you imagine if the people listening to that were some of his teammates from back then? And they're like, sure, your dog. Yeah, all of that was you being a dog. By the way, I'm looking behind me. My dog moment. I think I fucked up my wood floor. I slammed that. That's the second thing I've slammed on this floor post things changing in my life. Anger management time! More of CJ Gardner Johnson's greatest hits with the Houston Texans. Let's get through all of it, everybody. Come on now. Let's go. you've got some of the things that C.J. Gardner Johnson said in the preseason, right? There was him saying this about the Houston Texans right before things got started. God, I wonder how much it's going to cost to replace this floor. Are we going to have to replace the floor now? Here is Texans safety. JK, former Texans safety, C.J. Gardner Johnson. Just kidding. It's fucking muted again because we can't get out of our own goddamn way today. We're like the fucking Astros playing defense last night.
Let's talk about the contending teams. They all have one thing in common. They're hungry. They're ready to continue to work. And I don't want to lay our bed or say anything to put anything out there, but this is a Super Bowl team right here. Super Bowl caliber team. You guys just go out there and show it week in, week out, and start from practice, start from meetings. Everybody's a Super Bowl contending team because we all high caliber players in the NFL. So we go out there and compete. We got to understand who's next to us, who's across the ball, and we got to understand that this is a job for us. We got to get it done.
Note that C.J. Gardner Johnson was wearing 23 there, and I guess that clip did not actually show over the air. But here he is wearing number 23. This has just been an absolute disaster as far as don't throw anything, Paul. Don't throw anything, Paul. This has been a disaster as far as technical work on today's show. Put all this fucking work in before the show, and I can't even put the goddamn thing together. Up, threw something. Whoops, threw a pen. You might note that C.J. Gardner Johnson was wearing 23 here in the preseason, and the comments that we played that KHOU put together, he was wearing number 8 because that was after the C.J. Gardner Johnson. That was after the John Mechie trade had taken place. Anyway, more from C.J. Gardner Johnson at this press conference at the beginning of the preseason. Here he is being asked about the Texans' mentality, and he gave a fun little one-liner here.
Get better.
The belt celebration has traveled from Philly to Houston.
Say it again?
The belt celebration.
BJ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is and what that mentality is?
That's self-explanatory.
What is the belt ass philosophy?
In the PG terms, out-competing, out-hustling, and doing your job better than your opponent.
He was asked what belt to ass means, and that's what he gave. All right. More from C.J. Gardner Johnson, the greatest hits of his time with the Texans. He nearly, fucking A, man. God damn it. He nearly tore his ACL in early August, but he didn't actually. That was some fun reporting there. And this is similar to something that had taken place in July of 2023, where he was carted off of the practice field with a knee injury while with the Detroit Lions. An MRI, however, revealed that there was no structural damage. He returned to practice shortly after that went down. So, C.J. Gardner Johnson, vocal, a dog, but also the kind of dog that gets concerned about injuries that aren't that severe. Maybe fakes a limp. Gained a little sympathy. More of C.J. Gardner Johnson's greatest hits. Here he is right before the season opener after it was announced that he was back and ready to go with Aaron Wilson talking about what he's ready to go do. Here is C.J. Gardner Johnson, everybody.
Doing really well.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck.
Good.
Can you describe what happened? What
Hard in Greenbrier and probably overstraining myself, like just going hard than usual, and body gave out one day. That's it.
How
How is it to be back and be preparing for your first week?
I'm good. I feel good. I'm ready to go hunt. New team, so everybody trying to see how they haven't seen me play all preseason. They wonder what I'm gonna do. I feel good. Just blessed to be on the field with a group of guys that's ready to play ball.
Haven't seen me all preseason. Everyone's wondering what I'm going to do. Is he talking about his teammates there? Or is he talking about Texans fans? I wonder on that front. You've also got this moment from Texans Buccaneers in Monday Night Football. C.J. Gardner Johnson's greatest hits, where Baker Mayfield runs for a first down. Something happens to his ankle. Gardner Johnson gets in Mayfield's face, seems to wake Mayfield up. I don't know why the fuck Gardner Johnson's talking there after a first down, but he did. Again, what didn't play? Here's that clip one more time. Like, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing here? You've also got, as far as C.J. Gardner Johnson's greatest hits with the Houston Texans, this exchange that he had with the media after the Texans lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here he is, video courtesy of Aaron Wilson.
Not what I'm used to, but close game, good team. We gotta just focus in. You know, these type of games you gotta pull off at home. And we beat ourselves. A couple of plays here and now that it probably, not ain't saying other than the M's probably said as players, we probably got locked in a little bit more. Coach put us in position, we gotta go out there and finish those games.
Did you guys feel fresh at the end? The time of possession was about 2-1.
It was good. It was rolling. It's just, like I said, these are games as young guys. Fighting adversity, understanding that we got to tune out the crowd. Not saying we were tuned in, you got to go out there and finish. It's one of those games that doesn't make or break you as a team, but it defines you later on down the road. So just got to get better.
0-2, where does this team go from here? As you guys trying to turn the page?
15 weeks left, right? We got to keep playing. Season ain't over. I remember being with a team, we started off 2-2. Everybody thought the city was falling through. So just continue to play ball, trust the coaches like we've been doing, trust the scheme, and understand that they're here for us. And we don't want nobody get discouraged out. In this room, nobody get discouraged. Like this locker room, we trust each other. We understand that it's a tough fall game. Just gotta finish.
What's funny is, like, a little bit earlier, you had heard C.J. Gardner Johnson say that, like, I haven't been in a situation like this before. And then he's saying, hey, we've been in this situation before.
Them to have some success on the ground running the ball tonight.
That question, I think it was Will Kunkel who asked the question. I'm not 100% sure, but he's being asked essentially, like, hey, bro, what was going on with the run defense tonight?
You watch the same game I watched? I don't remember nobody breaking, but if they had a good time on the ground, I mean, shit, kudos to them.
If they had a good game on the ground, kudos to them. Dude, they averaged like 6 yards a carry. What are you talking about? Yeah, I couldn't believe he didn't know that after the game.
Next question.
Did it just the mentality on that last drive? What were you guys trying to do to close this thing out?
Win the game. Coach put us in position. We got to win the game for the coaches and the fans, and there's nothing really more to, harm on. Get to the film tomorrow, dissect it, or get back on Wednesday and get ready to hit the road to Jacksonville, right? So he got the dub. He's that great player, great competitor.
He's being asked about Baker Mayfield here.
He won the game for his team. Congrats to him, and on to next.
Kamari.
So that was C.J. Gardner Johnson. Aaron Wilson's channel, a good one to find for all Texans post-game interviews. C.J. Gardner Johnson's greatest hits. Some fun posts on social media. Remember when Baker Mayfield posted the image of him in C.J. Gardner Johnson's face? And Gardner Johnson said, "That's cute. You still don't have a ring, though." Like, talking like he's a Yankees fan. You've got him making some posts I think there were a couple of different ones. Was there one that was on Instagram? I don't know. We're all tired of CJ Gardner Johnson at this point, right? He had posted on Twitter a couple of different things. Let's just go through his Twitter right now. Let's just go through the whole thing. Oh, did he delete all of his posts? I think he did. Wow, he deleted a bunch of his posts. There were a couple of posts that he had made while with the Texans. Let me see if I change accounts, if this is going to give me all of what you said. Let's see here. Yeah, my For You has gotten a little wild, hasn't it? Let's see. Yeah, he just deleted all the posts that he had. Smart man. Smart man. You don't want to get clowned now that you're gone. So, first off, what's next for CJ Gardner Johnson? I bet he's going to do some sort of a podcast appearance in the near future. I wonder with who. I hope it doesn't come across as cringe as this little moment from Marlon Humphrey, Ravens cornerback, announcing a new episode of his podcast did after the Ravens lost the way that they did to the Lions Monday to fall to 1-2. By the way, now you beat the Ravens in week 5. Like, who gives a shit? They're underachieving too. You have no way to salvage the first 5 games of this year. Even if you win the next 2, much like in 2018, no one's going to give a shit. Marlon Humphrey, everybody. Maybe he's going to have CJ Gardner Johnson on his podcast. And once again, you did great. Great. I think we're going to do less video clips next time around because this is just, I am just not good at navigating through all of these on this at the same time by myself. I miss you, Sean.
We're at the Marlon Humphrey Show, and this is live, fresh off a Monday Night Football loss. You know, I feel like you always got to address the workplace just a tad bit. It was a rough evening at the office for myself and company. Things didn't go great. But, you know, the good news is
he has no idea what he's saying here, and he's just adding like, he's like, Hannibal. Chianti. Anyway, so that might be next for CJ Gardner Johnson. What's next for the Texans? I don't know. You're going to see more MJ Stewart at safety. You might see a little Miles Bryant at safety. Maybe rookie Jalen Reed plays a little bit of safety. Jimmy Ward's not healthy. Jalen Reed played well in camp. I saw Sarge talking about that. You want to maybe get a little bit of upside at that position. Maybe it comes there. But, yeah, you definitely got some real questions about the Texans in the secondary. I think lost in everything has been that Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Pollock have not been playing well themselves. Moving on from C.J. Gardner Johnson, it's a nice thing to move on from. You can point at that and say, this is the reason that we lost the first 3 games. But I got some questions. I tried to not watch the Houston Astros last night. The girlfriend was over. We were watching the Ken Burns documentary, Jazz. I know I didn't miss much. There were 3 hits, 2 of them by Christian Walker. They scored 1 run, but somehow I did, in the corner of my eye, because I got a 2 TV setup. Big TV was watching the Ken Burns documentary. Small TVs watching the Astros play against the homeless A's. And I look up on my screen, and every single time I looked up, it felt like the Astros were doing some dumb shit defensively. In case you missed it last night, here are a couple of clips on this one. You had the pop-up in the infield where Christian Walker's too late in, and Christian Javier misses it. You had this attempted catch by Jake Myers. Ball rolls out of his glove. You could tell he was mad about it afterwards. I mean, that would have been a tough catch, but he still should have made it. You've also got this moment, too, where, I mean, you're playing the A's. The A's are supposed to look like that, and You've actually, I think, lost the season series with the A's on the year. Isn't that crazy? So maybe some of those defensive issues are a result of the lights for the A's. I saw Christian Walker say there's lots of yellows and tans at the top of the press box against the sky. But goddamn, they are in a tough spot, these Houston Astros. They currently are 4 games back of the Mariners for first place in the American League West. Seattle's magic number is 2. They're 1 game back of the Detroit Tigers for the final wild card spot. Boston, Detroit, Cleveland hold the tiebreakers over them. If you've not seen the wild card standings, here they are for your viewing pleasure. If you're watching along on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports, on Instagram at Sports Gallant. Instagram's been a little screwy today. Basically, yeah, you need the Detroit Tigers to continue collapsing the way that they've been collapsing. Some interesting takes are starting to circulate. What happens next for the Astros? I saw Ben on the top pushing this. He's a fun follow for Astros fans on X because he's definitely polarizing. About as loud and as obnoxious a fan as it comes. Puts together some cool highlight reels from time to time. I've got no beef with him, and I will take all meaty speculation with a grain of salt, but I'll take it in, and I'll wonder, given that once Ben on the top before the trade deadline was one of the people who was hearing that the Astros were thinking about trading for Carlos Correa. At the very least, he is talking to someone in the building. That is my belief. Does that make him a baseball reporter? No. Should a baseball reporter get butthurt about him knowing people in the building? Also, no. For the sake of being fair and balanced, I'm just going to show you a couple of Ben on the top takes about the specific topic and specific question that I'm going to ask. Paul, you're taking a lot of time to set things up. Yes, I know. I'm trying to make sure that for a change, everything is technically sound on the Twitter side of things. Okay? Cut me some goddamn slack. This has been a pretty rough show on that front to this point. So June 19th, Ben on the top posted, Espada is putting together a strong case for manager of the year. A little bit later, on July 29th, Ben said Joe Espada has been in his motherfucking bag this year. And if you can't see it, you just aren't qualified to speak on this shit. A little bit later, this year, literally more than any year, it's 100,000% unfair to blame anything on the manager, Joe Espada. So he seems pretty pro Joe Espada there, right? But things started changing over the last 10 days or so. Ben on the top posts this September 11th at 4:12. I wonder how Espada is feeling right now. It's so fucking obvious that his team just doesn't come to the ballpark ready to play for him right now. I wouldn't put this all on him because they look like shit in every facet. But this is what I personally am seeing watching his club. More anti-Espada rhetoric from Ben on the top. Espada himself looks scared too, to be honest. On September 20th, someone said, I don't see how this is Espada's fault. Ben on the top says, I didn't say it was his fault. I said I think the Astros can find someone else better suited for the job than Espada. Espada kind of just got it by default. If he wasn't already in the building, it would have never been him to begin with. Just my take. And one last one. The only way to overcome this now is to win out in the regular season. In my opinion, I believe that's the only way that Joe saves his job, but that might not be enough. I'm telling y'all, Jim ain't going to be pleased with this shit. Why should he be? So he's flip-flopped. But he is connected with someone. And it does make me wonder if the speculation that started taking place last night after the Astros lost 5-1 to the A's about Joe Espada's job security is fair based off of this video clip at the end of the game on the Space City Home Network. In case you missed it, here it is. You got Correa and Espada talking with one another. Correa walks away. A lot of people focused on that and acted like Correa is sick of Espada. I think that's reaching. I really think it's reaching. But I do think it is an interesting question to ask now. Does Jim Crane get reactionary? The same guy who moved on from his general manager after winning a World Series, does he look at Joe Espada and say, yeah, I need a better manager? Is Joe Espada here next year? This is where we have entered in terms of realms of speculation. Meanwhile, the fear of missing out on the playoffs continues to grow. We said a moment ago that the Mariners clinched a playoff spot. Their magic number for the American League West crown is just 2 games. Just 2. Here is Cal Raleigh celebrating the Mariners' position after last night's game. I think this is a quote from the movie Major League. Could be wrong, but here is Big Dumper himself with the Mariners a game closer to winning the AL West.
Like you said, we love you. Might as well go win the whole fucking thing.
Then he raises the trident. I mean, yeah. It's getting to that point because they clinched a playoff berth last night, in addition to having their magic number shrink to 2. Meanwhile, the Yankees even clinched a fucking playoff spot. The Yankees, who not so long ago looked to be having a meltdown that was going to keep them out of the playoffs. So it came courtesy of a walk-off with the guy that got into it once, Jose Caballero, with Framber Valdez, which led to Framber throwing at somebody. Look at that. Walk-off against the White Sox. But a walk-off nonetheless to clinch a playoff spot. They're in. Because they're taking care of business against the schlubs of baseball. The White Sox blow. The A's are frisky. They stink too relative to you. And there are no excuses on your front as far as the struggles right now. No excuse. So when I saw this from the Astros yesterday afternoon, a post with this caption: tickets for the wild card and division series are on sale now. Look at this graphic. It shows Cam Smith smiling. American League wild card, American League division series. In the politest way for me to put this possible, Astros, kindly shut the fuck up and fuck off with that. It's looking like they're going to miss the playoffs altogether. Don't post that shit. Don't do it. People are just going to get mad at you and clown you in the comments. Not worth it. And it certainly looks like it's not going to happen. So unless you're rage baiting and trying to get some more engagement, don't post shit like that. Just a thought. One more time. I mean, this is wild. Tickets on sale now. Yeah, I'd hope they'd be on sale. And I hope I can get a refund if I bought them already. How are the Astros feeling after the most recent loss? Here is Astros manager Joe Espada after the game, being asked a variety of different questions.
Yeah, not much offensively. You know, we got to get our bats going here. We're running out of days, running out of games. We need just more consistent quality of bats, and when we do that, we're in good shape. But just today wasn't the case.
How much did the pop-up at the beginning of the game sort of, set the tone, give them a little bit of
I don't think it did. It just happens here all the time. It's just really difficult to see the ball in the first couple innings, and that we just couldn't score enough runs. That's it.
Excuses? No, he dodged it. It's not the fielding. It's the fact that we couldn't score. And it's true. I mean, 3 hits and 2 of them were by Christian Walker.
I understand you guys have had injuries. You're missing Jordan right now. Pena didn't play it. But how can you explain just the last 2 or 3 months, just the lack of run production and what's happened to your lineup?
You know what? I am going to speak to, a few months ago, we were scoring runs and we were doing some things offensively, just creating enough consistency for us to, win games in a row and win series in a row. That we're missing some bats and we miss some players. But we do have enough talent in that room to overcome those challenges, and that hasn't been the case, day in, day out. We just got to find some quality at bats here in the next 5 games and make a strong push.
Does that sound like a guy who's in firm command of his job going forward? Truly, I couldn't tell you. I think the speculation is merely speculation at this moment in time, but I think it's interesting coming from that one specific person who's a little bit more connected, a little bit more from Joe Espada, who's basically saying, yeah, we got a fucking hit.
Feel at all like everything that you guys have kind of had to fight through so far and all the absences and stuff, that might just be catching up at the end of the year?
Listen, this is the sprint to the end, man. This is what it takes. And every team is fatigued. Every team is, no one is 100%. We got to dig deep inside of us and see how badly we want it. That's what it comes down to.
All right. Got to dig down deep. That's what it comes down to. All right. Well, good luck. Because it ain't happening. More depressed Houston Astros after last night's game. Here is Christian Walker talking about Houston's struggles specifically at the plate.
Got a couple games here over the next 5 games.
Yeah, it is what it is. I fully plan on handling all these games the way we've been handling games all year. There's no question that there's a lot on the line. But a conversation we have often amongst ourselves is, does trying harder help? A game September 24th matters just as much as a game April 24th. So I think for us, it's about staying the course. We've been a good team all year. We prepare the right way. We work hard. We're ready for this moment. We're ready to get hot and earn our way into the postseason. We just, got to trust that.
That's a question I got to ask myself. Does trying harder help when you're putting together this show and you got all these audio clips and video clips that you want to play? Something you always did more of than all the other shows you worked with combined. Does it matter? All this effort you're putting into it now, especially? Are you overcompensating because you don't have a job, Paul? I like Christian Walker's honesty here. I mean, yeah, does trying harder make you do better? Does pressing more? No, it probably makes you worse, honestly. But the offense has been just such a disaster for such a long time this season. And the health, it's a factor, but it's not the entire thing here. More from Christian Walker.
We're ourselves out there, and everything will be all right.
Is there anything that you think has kind of stood between you guys and just take the consistent offensive production that you've been with? I mean, because it's been there at times, and like in Texas spurts, but just the consistency hasn't been there. Is there a reason for that?
To be honest, it's a good question. I don't have an answer to that at the moment. I know I can speak on myself. I have not been as consistent as I should have been this year. I feel like it's been trending in the right direction, but I mean, that's what we're doing every day. We're working as hard as we can to, you want to have a good game, you want to have success, but how do I do it over 162, over 6 months? How am I the best version of myself every day? Cut the cold streak short, keep the hot streaks going an extra day or two, anything you can, but I'll get back to you on that for sure.
You guys talk about yourselves, but just trying harder help. I guess, do you sense that there are guys, or there's, I guess, a collective team, there is maybe a trying harder, maybe that's a pressing thing that's going on? Do you sense that happening?
It could be. I think we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves anyway. And then you add the meaningfulness of the games. You add the back end of the year where, you're a little bit more tired, you're a little bit more fatigued. So, you're trying to make up for that. I think it's a natural thing. We want pressure. We crave pressure. Game on the line, I want to be the one hitting. It's like there's things that you embrace in this game when it comes to putting pressure on yourself. So it's a hard thing to navigate where, like, I want to feel the weight of the moment. I think that brings the best out of us to a certain extent. Where it turns to pressing, everybody's got to answer that question on their own. And, it's does a little more heightened awareness help sometimes? For sure. I think it's trying to figure out when it just turns into, maybe a little out of control or trying to do too much. Or it's a tough line. That's what makes this game hard and beautiful is trying to navigate the effort level and over the course of, a long season.
That entire line of questioning and all of Christian Walker's honest answers, depressing as hell. It's really the only way you can look at it. Extremely depressing to hear all of that. I mean, it could be worse. You could be the Detroit Tigers, who blew a 2-0 lead in the 6th inning against the Cleveland Guardians. They lost their 7th game in a row. They're now in first place in the American League Central. And their tiebreaker with Cleveland, non-existent. Pretty crazy to see what's going on with Detroit. So I guess it could be worse right now, but the Tigers are a game up on you in the wild card, and they have the tiebreaker, so they technically have a 1.5 game lead. It seems that Dana Brown did not speak today. So what does that mean? All right, I guess we're going to do Down with Dana Brown tomorrow. One last segment. To this point, I think everyone from the Cowboys to the Packers are playing Micah Parsons' return to Dallas way too nicely. Everyone's being super nice. Ew. Why? I hate that. Jerry Jones, he's being nice. Headline at ESPN.com. Based off an interview he did with our friends at 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Jerry Jones says trade adds excitement to Cowboys-Packers game. When asked about the excitement and the oomph it adds to the game, Jones said, I've said this time and time again, I think the world of Micah as an individual, and of course know him well. I might say I wish him well, except it's obvious I don't this weekend in terms of Green Bay winning the game. And so it makes for an exciting time. Jones continued on the radio station interview. It was nothing personal. I told you I liked Micah. Did he say Michael? As much as people wanted to make that of it, there was no issue regarding feelings relative to negotiations. Certainly not on my part. It was just par for the course. Jones was also asked about a potential tribute video for Micah Parsons, because we see that in all sports these days, right? James Harden quits on the Houston Rockets. He comes back to town after forcing his way out, possibly while wearing a fat suit. He gets a tribute video. Hell, you could be the 8th or 9th man on an NBA team and play against your old team. They're probably going to give you a tribute video, and they're going to do it unironically. Tribute videos are the norm in 2025. So while a lot of people are pissed off at Jerry Jones for trading Micah Parsons and not getting as much in return as he probably should, I will tip my hat to Jones, who said it's not appropriate to give Micah, who he sometimes calls Michael, a tribute video. I don't think that's appropriate this way. Emmett was a different story when Emmitt Smith came back with the Arizona Cardinals against the Cowboys. But that's not to diminish Micah. I think Micah's got good enough welcome out there. We just need to show we've got antidotes for that. Good for Jerry Jones. Fuck the tribute video for the guy who is no longer on your team, who you are playing against, when things go south the way that they did. I understand some are going to make the argument, well, it was Jerry Jones who kind of fucked this situation up. But if you thought you had a handshake agreement with Micah Parsons, and then Parsons' agent got involved, and it led to this, can you give him the tribute video? I'm sure this is the leading topic on all of the Speak for Your Pizza shows over the last couple of days, but I'm going to actually give Jerry Jones a little bit of credit here. Fuck the tribute video for the guy who left your team. Meanwhile, you've got Micah Parsons also being far too nice, talking about playing against his old team. Here he is in an interview with Rob Mahdi, who is the AP senior NFL writer. He asked Micah Parsons about going up against his old quarterback with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Here he is. See, he has very luscious eyelashes, for what it's worth, in case you can't see right here, and perhaps slightly over-penciled brows. Here is Micah Parsons talking about going up against Dak Prescott one more time.
But if you get that opportunity, I know you will want to, with Dak, what would that feel like?
It's gonna be painful. You know what I mean? Dak's my guy. He was always like a good mentor for me. But you know what it is. I always told him if I ever faced him that, it'll be a great matchup. So I'm excited to see what Sunday brings itself.
He's smiling while he says it. He says it will be painful to go after Dak. It's lame. Everyone's being so nice. Fuck that. Why does everyone have to be so nice in 2025? Talk about how you want vengeance, how you want a head on a spike. I've actually got an idea here. What if Micah Parsons answered this question like this? What if he went about it this way? Let's play the Micah Parsons clip one more time and then play another one.
It's gonna be painful.
It's gonna be painful, he says. Well, how about finish off that thought in the same way that one of my favorite movie villains ever did?
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
Boom! It's going to be painful for Dak. Why not go about it that way? It would have been a lot more fun. Everyone's being way too nice before this game. I don't think things are going to be nice on the field for the Cowboys, though. I really don't, because given the lack of CeeDee Lamb, who's got a high ankle sprain, is going to be out at least 2 weeks, and the lack of focus by the Packers going into last week, I don't know how many people saw this quote from a Green Bay Packer before their game against the Cleveland Browns that has aged spectacularly poorly. But here is Packers left tackle Rasheed Walker before the Packers game against the Browns.
That's why we're 2-0 right now. And then the goal is to, keep it going. I think we can go undefeated.
I think we could go undefeated, and then they lose to the Cleveland Browns. A player on your team says shit like that, and then you lose to a team that's quarterbacked by Joe Flacco. You can imagine that there's going to be an extra level of focus at practice during the week, and I think you've already gotten it. Here is Packers head coach Matt LaFleur being asked about those very specific comments by his left tackle talking about an undefeated season.
This league is such a week-to-week league, and you can never lose sight of that. And you can't take any moment, any game for granted. And the goal, and I've said it a million times to you guys, I don't think I've obviously said it enough to our team, the goal is to go 1-0 every week. And it pisses me off when we start talking about things outside of the next game, things that are way down the road. Like, focus on, keep the focus on the present, on the now, and worry about getting better each and every day. This league is such.
I know right there he's smiling, but considering that in the game against the Commanders, LaFleur's on the sideline absolutely yelling at some big dude on the Packers, maybe it was his left tackle, lighting him up. I can imagine in practice this week, Matt LaFleur is being the biggest asshole to this team. And rightfully so. So I think the Packers are going to be super focused on Sunday against the Cowboys. I think that Micah Parsons is going to be super focused in this game, even though he's playing nice. And even though the Cowboys are playing nice, which is disappointing because they're supposed to be the best reality TV show in sports. It would be nice if there was some shit talking by both sides going into the game. It's very disappointing. And it's going to be very disappointing on Sunday for the Cowboys. I think they're going to get skull-fucked, to be frank. We shall see. It's going to be painful, I think, on a level that the last Packers-Cowboys game went in the playoffs. So there you go. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into today's live show. If you did, and sticking with it through the technical difficulties, I'm going to have to figure out a line to draw when it comes to prep, because I over-prepare for these shows, and then I try to play all of these clips, and it is just a lot of stuff that I'm trying to figure out how to do on the fly, and I'm slowly getting better at it. But, man, that mute moment earlier in the show, I'm still mad at myself for that. I don't think I'm going to get over it for days. Not even kidding. But I appreciate you if you stuck around for it. You can join me live weekdays at noon on the YouTube side of things at Paul Gallant. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe. You can get it on Twitch too, at Gallant Says. Give me a sub if you haven't already. On X and Twitter, at Gallant Says Podcast. On Instagram, at Sports Gallant. Also on TikTok, at Gallant Says. On Facebook, at Paul Gallant Sports. It's available after the fact in podcast form. We're going to have to edit out the 10 minutes of no audio. Wherever you get your podcast, subscribe, rate, and review me on Apple, Spotify. If you roast my ass, I'll read it. You have a question for the show, send an email at gallantsays@gmail.com or leave a voicemail at 281-836-3912. Again, 281-836-3912. Until tomorrow at noon Central Time, what is it that we say? You know the drill. So long. Farewell. Again, technical difficulties. Can't get out of the way today, huh? Come on. Play the clip. Jesus Christ.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.
We'll